This is the first of many.
Today's tariff announcement is another protectionist move against China, threatening to disrupt the world economy.
These tariffs pose a serious risk to our economy. They could trigger a trade war, and they may damage our relations with key allies.
A months-long investigation found that China violates American intellectual property rights and steals trade secrets through cyber hacking. But to remedy that through tariffs is widely expected to trigger Chinese retaliation.
I don't think they can let it go. I mean, just looking at the domestic politics, it will be showing the weakness to just let it go.
Farmers are especially vulnerable. Many American crops are exported to China. If China retaliates with tariffs of its own, profits would disappear. Even without Chinese action, U.S. consumers could get hit. Those cheap Chinese goods Americans are so used to buying, all of a sudden, not so cheap. The Retail Industry Leaders Association, which represents Target, Walmart, and Costco, warned the White House these tariffs may be aimed at China, but the bill will be charged to American consumers who will pay more at the checkout for the items they shop for every day. More evidence Trump's target is China. The U.S. granted more exceptions to the steel and aluminum tariffs, which take effect Friday. They will no longer apply to the European Union, Argentina, Australia, Brazil, and South Korea. They will still apply to China.
China's unfair subsidy behavior.
And no one should be surprised. Trump has railed against China's trade surplus with America, worth hundreds of billions of dollars, for years.
It's probably one of the reasons I was elected, maybe one of the main reasons.
These tariffs aren't immediate. The U.S. has 15 days to announce the targeted industries, followed by a period of public comment, leaving time to negotiate with China. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Washington.
Our Asia correspondent, Sasha Petrusik, is following reaction to all of this from Beijing. Sasha, what are you hearing so far?
Well, Rosie, for several days now, China has been ramping up its response, saying it does not want a trade war. And in another era, it may well want to resolve this diplomatically. That would be its first choice. After all, it benefits from good access to the U.S. market. But these are not normal times. China's in a very confident mood. Just earlier this week, President Xi Jinping gave a speech to the National Congress, the National People's Congress, saying that stoking nationalistic fears here, saying that China would not back down for anybody. And so all of this is not looking good, and things could get tougher at this end of the scale. We did hear some reports today of extra tariffs being imposed on agricultural products, on pork and aluminum, for some of the other things that Trump has done over the past days. But we are also hearing that this is going to ramp up. And if that does happen, then we are into a trade war.
Okay, the CBC's Sasha Petrusik in Beijing tonight. Thank you. Let's switch the focus back here at home to Canada. China is currently this country's second largest trading partner after the United States. So could there be consequences for the Canadian economy in all this? And our Katie Simpson is following that part of the story tonight. Katie, how will the president's tariffs impact this country?
Well, Rosie, Canadian investors will feel the immediate impact in the short term. A looming trade war is not good for markets. And if shoppers think the dispute could lead to lower prices for Canadians, experts say that's not likely.
So we are not talking about cheap consumer goods that you find in Walmart or Canadian Tires.
This University of Toronto professor says Donald Trump is likely to target Chinese robotics and artificial intelligence with his tariffs. So China will not need to find new markets for everyday items, including clothes and shoes, the kinds of products both Americans and Canadians are already buying.
We are really talking about high-tech products that are not going to be easily dumped on the foreign market. We are not talking about cars or any consumer durables.
This means for Canadian consumers, for now, it should be the status quo at the shopping mall.
Okay, of course, Katie, what you've mostly been covering lately, the NAFTA negotiations with the United States, but Canada's also trying to get free trade talks started with China. What could all this mean for Canada politically?
Donald Trump's move means a new balance that the Prime Minister is going to have to try to navigate.
We know that if we can establish a clear set of rules and a framework around an agreement with China, then Canadians will benefit. But we are taking our time on that.
Justin Trudeau wants to continue exploring the possibility of free trade talks with China, but the optics of getting closer with Beijing could pose a challenge for Trudeau. Remember, to avoid tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, he had to go out of his way to convince the president China was not dumping cheap steel into Canada and ending up in the U.S.
When a trade war gets kicked off, these things can spiral out of control very, very quickly. But the best move for Canada is to maintain a constructive relationship with both countries.
Another problem Trudeau could face has to do with security. If the U.S. thinks Canada isn't taking the threat of China seriously, and we do know there are already big concerns around that, it could be another irritant in this dynamic of Canada, China, the U.S., Rosie.
Who knew trade would be so interesting? The CBC's Katie Simpson in Ottawa tonight. Thank you.